welcome, guys, to episode 16 of the Skunk Ape podcast. I'm Chad.
And I'm Gavin.
And we got one hell of a podcast for you guys this week.
Yeah, I'm excited. Today we're bringing on Jasmine Dolores. I hope I pronounced that right. But she's actually a zookeeper at Zoo Tampa, which is one of Chad's favorite zoos. I think is your favorite?
My favorite zoo.
So we're bringing on Jasmine, and we're going to talk. She works with all kinds of cool stuff. She works in the reptile department, so she gets to work with the tomistoma. There's tree monitors, venomous snakes, and what we're going to be focusing on tonight, though, is going to be the Komodo dragons that her and her team work with, and they've been successful. At least I know they've been successful at least 1 year, but I want to say they've bred them a couple years, and we'll find more out about that.
Yeah, and what's funny is I still remember as a little kid seeing in the newspaper in Tampa about, it used to be called Laurie Park Zoo, getting their first set of Komodos.
That's so cool.
So
we'll definitely
really
have to bring that up.
So excited. Well, there's first and foremost, when we get her, as soon as she comes on, I have one very important question for her, and it's more of a home thing than has to do with anything with reptiles, but it's a place that I used to go to that's right around the corner, and I just want to see if she's had the privilege of trying it. So.
Well, with that, we're going to go ahead and bring her on now. So let's just get right on into it. I know I'm super stoked. I know Chad's excited, and Jasmine's told me she's super excited. So I know it's going to be a fun episode tonight.
Hey, we get to talk about home is great. But actually,
hello.
Welcome.
I need one of those Croc Fest shirts. I never bought one.
You know, it's
Oh my gosh, yeah. They're awesome.
I know. They
I
look
almost put on my Black Cayman Crocfest shirt.
I had that one on too, and I actually switched into this one because it's a little bit more comfortable,
Yeah.
but couldn't match.
Well, and being that you're in Tampa, I mean, you got to represent Cuba a little bit.
Absolutely, and I think this was from our most recent Croc Fest too that was held at Zoo Tampa.
Yeah, I'm upset I didn't go to that one.
The one that we were both talking about going to and just didn't go to because of everything going on.
It got rained out. It got super rained out. It was still good. People watched us, feed the crocs and do the demonstration in the rain, but the auction was fun afterwards.
Yeah, that's the only reason I go is for the auction. Like, it's the most fun.
Now,
It is.
Did you guys have the auction in that big, the big pavilion in the back in the new Africa? Yeah.
Or it's not by Africa. It's kind of towards the front of the zoo. It's called Saunders Pavilion. But yeah.
Well, I have been to Laurie Park. Well, I call it Laurie Park Zoo. Sorry if anybody. I'm born and raised in Tampa. It was always Laurie Park Zoo. So,
oh yeah, me too. Absolutely.
And now it's Zoo Tampa at Laurie Park.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming on. First of all, like we really appreciate it. We're super excited.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Thank you guys so much for having me. I thought it was really cool that you're even interested in talking to me about my animals that I work with. So thank you.
Wait, what reptile guy is not, or reptile person, I shouldn't say reptile guy, is not totally interested in Komodos?
I know.
Really?
They're the best.
Like, I still remember, I was telling Gavin that I still remember that the newspaper article that came out when you guys first got them, when you walked right past the little fountain area, and right past the Asia, or on the backside of the Asia pavilion, where I think the enclosure is still there.
Yep, that's where we still have them. Yep.
Yeah. But one question before we get into Komodos: how many times after work do you go to Bo's Ice Cream?
Honestly, dude, never. And I should. I know.
That hurts my heart. That hurts my heart so bad.
I don't take advantage of it as much as I should. There is. Have you heard of Laurie's Parkade?
No, that's new.
It's right by the zoo, and a lot of us go there sometimes, but it's like an arcade bar situation.
Cool.
But there's a few spots that we frequent a lot around the zoo, but I've had Bo's before, love it. But definitely after a hot day, that's a great idea.
Gavin, we go down there and visit. I'm taking you to Bo's Ice Cream, and we're getting a Reese's Peanut Butter Shake.
I'm down.
Absolutely. Where are you guys?
I'm in Gainesville.
I'm actually in Alabama now.
And I'm in Gainesville.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
But yeah, I know. I mean, like the Safety Village that used to be behind there, we used to go there for field trips and stuff in elementary school. And Like, I used to live right down the street from Chamberlain High School. So.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's literally right outside of the zoo.
Yeah, not far at all. So, but yeah, so I'm really excited because I feel like I'm talking about back home again. And
yeah, that's awesome. I know it's my home too. I was also born and raised in Tampa. I absolutely love it here.
Yeah, best city in the U.S. to live by far. I've actually done some really sketchy reptile trades in the Laurie Park Zoo parking lot.
Then, like we ask everyone, like what got you into the reptiles, and then we'll lead into like how did you get into the AZA side of things?
Yeah, absolutely. So since I was a small kid, always loved reptiles. I grew up on Steve Irwin. I remember being a tiny kid and like watching him, running to my parents and telling them everything I learned, running back to the TV, like being super excited. As I got older, I leaned more towards aquatic species. Like I was really into elasmos, like sharks and rays.
Okay.
Were really my jam. I really concentrated on that. Volunteered at the aquarium, the Florida Aquarium, for a little bit. And I went to USF. I went to HCC and then USF just for biology. But when I got a little bit older, because in high school, I wanted to be in a punk band. That was what I was focused on. But when I got a little bit older, actually, Brian Barczyk, I watched the vlog, and it kind of reignited the passion, believe it or not, for me. And from there, I was inspired to apply for an internship at Zoo Tampa. Mm-hmm. Got the internship in the wintertime, and it opened my eyes to, like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I want to work with these animals. I love this zoo. Yeah. Really dedicated myself every holiday, New Year's, Christmas, Thanksgiving. I was with the dragons. I was helping them with everything. So, and then after my internship there, opened a lot of doors for me. I went to Belize and interned with the Crocodile Research Coalition.
Oh, awesome.
Over there. Yeah, and so I got to work with some Morlets and American crocs, which is really cool. It was during COVID, so some of the stuff we could do was pretty limited, but in general, it was an amazing experience. And then a position opened up, and I applied, and they remembered me as an intern, and it's taken off from there.
So when you were an intern, what were you doing as an intern? Because I volunteered at the St. Augustine Alligator Farm when I was a kid, and like that same thing. Like as soon as I started volunteering there, it just opened my eyes into this world. And I was doing like educational camp counseling stuff. But you said you were working with like the Komodos as an intern.
Yeah, so it's nothing like hands-on. You have to even build trust before you even go into like the Komodo building. Mm. It was basically just like helping them set up feeds and stuff, because we shipped our dragons into their night house, then we set up their food, and then we shipped them back out. Okay. So I never had any contact, never got too close to them, but every aspect of their care that I could take part in, like even cleaning their night houses, I loved it. Giving them fresh water, even just the foundation stuff, I was just like, this is chef's kiss. Love it.
Wow. That's awesome. So I mean, we'll get into more of that stuff, because it's just like I just want to snuggle them.
They're so cool. They're a force to be reckoned with for sure, but they're so smart, and you get to really know them. I feel like they're my coworkers. Like I go in and I talk to them. Like, good morning, Titus. Like, what trouble did you get into last night?
And they're so intelligent. Like they're like the crocodilians, like where they can probably recognize their name at this point, I'd imagine. But yeah,
so I'm really lucky. The crocs that I work with at the zoo, Indian gharials, tomistoma, and our American alligators, I came into the position with them being pretty well trained, very, you can work with them pretty easily, because the team before me, they're still my current team, they're amazing. They've done great stuff with these animals. So I feel really lucky. I feel really spoiled. Like if I went to another facility and a croc was just acting like a normal croc, like a Philippine croc or something, I'd be like, what is this trash crocodile?
Well, you're more than welcome to come up here and tell me if my crocs are acting as they're supposed to.
I wanted
because,
to keep going. You're good.
Yeah. No, because I don't know. I mean, they just do their crocodile thing, and I go, "You're gonna bite my hand," and I don't want to feel that, so I'll stay away.
When you went to Belize, what kind of work were you doing with Morlets and Americans?
Yeah, so a lot of it, a big part of it were surveys. So we did like surveys out in kayaks. I had the opportunity to actually, under permits, obviously capture juvenile American and Morlet crocs and take data on them, record that data. I also did a lot of human and crocodile conflict education.
Okay.
And a lot of work with talking to the locals, explaining like feeding this croc is not going to be the best because it's going to get big and end up at your doorstep. And a couple times we also relocated some nuisance crocs that were in someone's little pond in their back or something. So it was really cool stuff. There was a curfew. So like I said, it was during COVID, and at the time there was a curfew for 8 p.m. So we were limited, but we did a lot of overnight camping, a lot of primitive camping and stuff, which was really fun. Lots of kayaking.
That sounds like so much fun.
Yeah, that's something we need to do. And then I find there's this, Chris actually posted up a link on Facebook about this, like, resort style place in Belize for like $500,000. I'm like, sold. I'll take it.
Now, did you when you were doing the crocodile, like catching them and surveying them, were you running into like any hybrids or anything?
It's really interesting because when I was there, they were really getting into that conversation where we were finding juveniles, if I remember correctly, that had physical features of Morlets and Acutus too. So they're doing a lot of cool things of figuring out exactly what's going on. They're doing a lot of cool things with water quality and how that's affecting croc populations in different parts of Belize. So they're really inspiring people. Marissa over there, she's amazing.
Yeah,
so now what about, I mean, because I'm a water nut, like that's just what I like. What about the water quality affects the crocs? Like,
if I remember correctly, I think it was heavy metals. One of the researchers, Jonathan, that was his big project, and I believe it was heavy metals in the water. I could be a little bit wrong about that, but I remember I think it was in the area called Orange Walk.
Okay. I have no idea where that's at, but sure, it sounds great.
that's cool.
Now, I do have one other stupid question, because being from Florida, we've all seen these signs that say, do not feed or molest alligators. Did you have to put any of those signs up to make sure that people didn't feed or molest the alligators?
So I didn't. I basically was like the walking sign where we worked with the local community. Even when I got back to the States, I did some Zoom calls where I talked to classrooms along with the CRC staff, just educating them. They're really interested in alligators too, so having experience with alligators, they were really interested in that. So
that's cool.
So now, you said you also interned at Florida Aquarium as well?
I volunteered there right after high school for a little bit.
That's my favorite aquarium. Like, the Georgia Aquarium is cool. Like, it's probably the best aquarium, but like personally, my favorite's the Florida Aquarium.
It's amazing. It's so good. They just added a new section called Morphed, and they have paddlefish and axolotls now, and it's so cool.
I need to go.
Awesome.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, the last new exhibit I saw that they had was the Madagascar thing up in the trees.
Yeah, they have radiated tortoise and lemur and
Yeah, they had all that stuff. They redid the entranceway where they had the big stingray touch tank, and they expanded that. I mean, but that opened when I was a little kid, so we went there. So seeing it evolve throughout time, I mean, it was just awesome. Like, I remember when they changed the signs on the Goliath grouper from Jewfish to Goliath grouper, and then they had the barracuda. I don't know if it's even still there. The barracuda with big tumors all over its head.
Oh, I'm not too sure.
Yeah, this thing was, I mean, he was probably 6 foot long and just had these giant lumps all over his head. I was like,
So how long have you said you started after COVID working at Tampa Zoo? Or how long?
Yeah, actually in October it'll make 3 years. So 2021 is when I got hired on.
That's exciting. That's awesome. And did you do you work with just solely reptiles there, or are you working with anything else?
So reptiles and amphibians.
Okay.
So ever since working at at Zoo Tampa, amphibians are like my jam now. The wonderful world of amphibians. The zoo recently actually sent me to Detroit Zoo for amphibian school.
Oh,
that's put on by the Amphibian Taxon Advisory Group, and it's like a 5-day crash course for everything amphibian. And like Detroit Zoo is an incredible facility. They're amazing.
That's awesome. What would you say would be the number one thing you took away from that frog class?
Ooh, honestly, water quality. How important water quality is, and how it varies per species in their natural history. I've always been really focused on like the monitors and like the crocs and stuff, and we have life support who takes care of our water quality for the big pools like that at the zoo. But maintaining these tanks on a smaller level, and also enriching amphibians, that could be kind of complicated, and it was really cool to get some cool ideas from there.
What are some?
Now,
oh, you're good, Chad.
What now? Only because I'm trying to remember, because I'm thinking of walking through the manatee area and going to the reptiles. I don't even remember what. I mean, I'm sure there were amphibians in there, but I don't even remember what you guys have there.
Oh, they got some crazy dart frogs.
Oh yeah, we used to.
Oh.
That building, the Manatee Tunnel, is actually torn down right now because it's getting turned into. They're continuing the Manatee Rescue Center, and like making a really cool aquarium portion of the zoo where events are. But I don't know if you guys remember the Discovery Center where you would go and it was. So we're going to try to bring back the Discovery Center, and there's construction going on right now to have a reptile. It's going to be Reptile and Amphibian Discovery, I think, is what it will be called. Sweet. But recently, if you were to visit in the last 8 months, we had cave salamanders, spotted salamanders. We do have striped newts, which we breed and release, Puerto Rican crested toads, which we breed, and Panamanian golden frogs, which we also breed.
Oh, wow. That's pretty cool.
That's really cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
What is, out of all the reptiles, would you say the Komodos are your favorite to work with?
That's a tough question, because I feel like I get so hyper fixated on certain things and so excited about certain things, and that's why I love my job, is like I can find the magic in a lot of different species the longer that I work there. Komodos are like my heart. It sounds corny, but I feel like they're like my spirit animal. But individual animal at that zoo probably are tomistoma.
Yeah. What's it like working with one that
She is so cool. Oh, I'm sorry about that. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, what's it like working with one that big? Because she's big.
She is big. She's about 11.5 foot.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, she's big chungus. She's a little chunky. But it's okay. She's incredible. She's such a good gharial. Like I said, I came into the job with her already target trained, and being a really well-behaved croc. But her and I have bonded a lot within the last year. Within the last year, I've basically been her primary trainer, and she responds to me so well. She comes to me, I can tell that she has trust or has some comfort in me, which I don't take lightly. Once I leave her hab, I'm like a little schoolgirl. Like, oh my God, that was so cool. Even though I do it like every week for the last 3 years, it's still just so magical.
How often do you have to go in there and have like training sessions? Is it daily?
No, so we do it once a week.
Oh, okay.
We do it once a week, and in the colder months, it depends on temperature if we want to go ahead and feed her. If it's too cold, we probably will hold off for a week or so until it warms up again. But she has fantastic memory. We can leave probably for a few weeks to a month and come back, and she'll pick up right where we left off.
Oh, wow. And what is too cold for them to be trained, or like feeding them? What do you guys consider too cold?
Sorry, what was that?
What do you consider too cold to feed them?
Gotcha. So when it gets, basically for her, she has a heated pool, but when it gets probably in the 50s outside,
Okay.
um, yeah, we'll probably hold off until it warms up. Just because sometimes she does like to come out and bask and everything, and so we try not to feed our crocs too much when it's pretty cold outside, which isn't that often in Florida.
It makes sense. Like they have such a slow metabolism already.
Yeah.
So y'all have true gharials too, right?
We do. The Indian gharials are very fun.
Are they as well trained as the tomistoma?
So I wouldn't say they're as well trained. We have them station trained, where basically we have 3 gharials. We have 3 females. We found out recently that we have all girls, so it explains why breeding hasn't worked out so far. But 3 people come in, and each gharial stations in front of a person. And once they station in front of us patiently, then we'll go ahead and start feeding and give our chat. They do get excited when you walk in because they know it's food time. So they'll come and get excited, and then they realize, oh, I got to be in the water if I want to get a reward. They go right into the water and they station. They're really amazing.
That's cool. And I know at the alligator farm, we fed them this weird this weird
like
mix.
A gel, right?
Yeah, like a gel. Is that what you're feeding them over there?
So we primarily feed them trout. We'll get some tilapia too. We haven't done the gel. I personally haven't tried it. It would be cool for us to try it for like enrichment purposes and see if they really do like it. Mm-hmm. Every once in a while they'll get a quail and a rat, which they're not super stoked about rats most of the time. They'll play with it a little bit, then they'll eat it out of spite. But we haven't done much with the gel so far.
Okay, interesting. I feel like it's better to do whole prey items than that gel. Like I feel like it's a lot more natural for them, anyways.
Yeah, and we like thiamine back into the fish and stuff, and different vitamins too. Mm-hmm. So.
Oh, so you're basically dusting your fish. We would call it dusting, but we don't get all the fun stuff that you get.
Yeah, so we do feed them frozen thawed. We have been for a while really wanting to get live fish and get a live fish protocol in, just to see them go about their natural behaviors. They're specialized fish traps, so what's better enrichment for them than eating live fish? But in an AZA institution, it's kind of hard to get those protocols in sometimes.
Yeah, that'd be so cool to watch though, watching them naturally hunt.
Oh, I know, for sure.
And so is that? Oh, you're good, Chad.
No.
What? So those are the 3 crocodilians y'all have at the zoo, or just tomistoma, gharial, and American alligators?
Yep. We used to have more alligators. We used to have, I believe, a Philippine crocs too. But since I've been there, they haven't been there. So those are the 3 that I've worked with. Okay,
interesting. So I guess we can start talking about the Komodos. So how did you, when you started, like officially started working at Zoo Tampa, how did you like get the training and start working with Komodos? Like how did you get in on that?
Yeah, so the herps team at the zoo is the smallest team, I believe, at the zoo. So there's my curator, 2 full-time keepers, which I'm one of them, and then we have an occasional Jason. So there's 4 of us total. So with training, I kind of had to get thrown in pretty quickly, just as far as staffing purposes and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So it was just shadowing my coworkers. The dragons, really good animals, really good at shifting, and it's a lot of on-the-job training when the opportunity arises. A lot of my experience and a lot of my training has been at Zoo Tampa, and I'm a completely different keeper now that I was definitely 2 years ago and even a year ago, just because as I go, I run into more things and I get more on-the-job training. So, with Komodo breeding, that's kind of when we get hands-on with them. So I would say last year, about a year and a half ago, is when I got the most experience with actually going in and separating our adult dragons from breeding and shifting them and stuff like that. So it's definitely one of those things you got to be sure about. So I'm very good with my boss. If I'm uncomfortable, I'm going to watch this time and do it next time. So I have to definitely make those decisions for myself to be like, you got to just get in and do it, and you got to be confident about it.
How do you go about separating Komodos?
What was that?
How do you go about separating two Komodo adults?
Yeah, so our female, and especially during breeding season, she gets pretty exhausted. She gets pretty low energy. It takes a toll out of her to have that male on top of her for basically all day, like pinning her down and breeding her. But it's our big male. He doesn't like getting pulled off of his female. I don't blame him. So we have Y poles, and he's out of size right now. He just reached just about 70 pounds. So he's out of size right now where we're getting in push boards to safely block ourselves when we need to.
Wow. Does he come at you guys when you're trying to separate them? Or is he pretty calm?
He's a Komodo dragon. So if I feel like when you force those animals to do anything, so we do get hands on him and we take him off of the female and everything. And we have bite gloves on too, just for extra precaution, and plenty of people. It's like a whole, it feels like a whole production, just because sometimes the stakes can be high. But yeah, he's not a big fan of it, and he will, I don't want to say go after us, but he will show us that he's not super stoked about us being in there.
I know that feeling. I mean, not with a Komodo, but I definitely know it with a big male croc monitor.
Oh, yeah. And croc monitors, I have so much respect for croc monitors because they, like a Komodo dragon in the trees, that's crazy.
It's the croc monitor we have here is insanely large. He's probably 9 feet long from snap to tip of his tail. He's a big boy, and he definitely will tell you how angry he is, and like going in there and just changing his basking lights. It's like, how do I get as little of myself in there? Because it's a full walk-in enclosure. It's like, what do we do?
Yeah.
So I know how intimidated I am with a 9-foot croc monitor, and he doesn't weigh 70 pounds. And I mean, you're saying 70 pounds is your male, and I'm like, that seems like a really small Komodo, but also like twice the size of the biggest monitor we have here. So it's like, that's scary. That's just, how intimidating is that to walk in that enclosure for the first time and seeing those?
Oh, exactly. Especially from, I feel like I came from very humble beginnings. I was an intern, and then all of a sudden I get hired on, and now it's real life, and I'm in here with these animals. So you definitely have to take a step back and take it in for what it is. But we do have protocol for everything, and so far we have executed everything in a really safe manner, and we've been successful with breeding. So I'm very happy with kind of how this process has been going, especially since our male has gone through quite a growth spurt in the last year or two.
How long is he?
Now,
I want to say he's probably around, with the tail, probably around 6 foot.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, probably around 5.5 to 6 foot.
Wow. But he's a solid.
Yeah, he's probably bulky.
Yeah, and he's really muscular. So we take a lot of pride of the body condition of our Komodos at Zoo Tampa. We're still learning things about Komodo all the time as time goes on, and so a lot of dragons that you'll see in managed care will be a little bit on the obese side, right? So that's kind of, sometimes that's what makes your monitors handleable. That's what makes them calm. It's not our favorite approach. We only feed them every 4 to 6 weeks. That's it. Oh, wow. We do a carcass feed, and we let them gorge, and that keeps them at a solid, great body condition where he's not fat, he's muscular, and you can still see that lateral fold really well. Yeah.
So you're good.
So the one thing I've always heard about Komodos, or most wild wild-type animals is, like, you hear about the venom that Komodos have. Is that actually a legit venom, or is that a bacteria in their mouth that's produced because of carcass feeding and whatnot in the wild?
Yeah, it is a legit venom. So it's basically triggered by pressure. So when a Komodo dragon bites on something and the pressure kind of pushes down on their teeth, it's an oozing effect. So that venom is going to ooze into the wound. And it's not a venom like you would see in a rattlesnake or anything. It's basically an anticoagulant too, and it'll really make you bleed like a pig.
Yeah, I do know they just came out with some like documentation that all Komodos have iron-tipped teeth as well, so that probably affects you as well.
Yeah, that was like super cool to see that come out, because they shed their teeth and everything, and us as reptile people, we like to collect stuff like that. We'll collect their skin, collect their teeth, and stuff like that. And I've always seen it. It has kind of like a orange aura around it, and so that was really cool to find out that it's iron.
Yeah, when I saw that, my first thought was like you always see like croc monitors and Komodos like when they're bleeding from their gums. My first thought was I wonder if that's just iron coming from their teeth and not actually blood. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I actually don't. I haven't had too much experience with seeing them necessarily bleed from their gums much, so I'm not too sure.
Okay.
Now, how big are the teeth on those Komodos?
They are not too big. I wouldn't even say they're an inch.
Really?
Nothing compared to croc monitors.
Yeah.
Nothing. In size-wise, nothing compared to croc monitors, but they are serrated and they are hooked, slightly hooked. So it is like a full mouth full of steak knives, right? So they don't necessarily need big teeth. The way that they take off pieces of meat is kind of a sawing motion. So they'll basically saw pieces off and easily cut through flesh like butter. So they don't necessarily need long teeth to like hold on to prey or anything like that.
That's just scary.
Yeah, and like you were saying, like with the croc monitors, it's like having a Komodo dragon that climbs in trees, and it's scary watching the big croc monitors eat. But watching the videos of the wild Komodos taking down deer and stuff and just dragging them through the woods, it's like, no.
Oh, I know. If you go on my Instagram, I think it's been a minute since I posted a carcass feed, but I have some videos of how we set up our prey items for a Komodo, where we usually have them tethered so they can use those natural behaviors, use those neck muscles, those back muscles, and you can see them using that sawing motion. If not, like I've put a rabbit in there and they'll swallow it. Like those videos of them eating goats that are going around like crazy right now, they'll just swallow it like a chicken nugget. But it's really cool to see them like tear some with their nails and rip through it with their teeth. It's awesome.
Yeah,
so you're tethering the prey. I was thinking you were tethering the Komodos for some reason. I was like, oh, you're tethering the prey. Okay. I'm thinking you're putting them on like a bungee cord so they can reach out and only get so close to it and grab it back. I'm like, I'd hate to be the person to put the harness on that Komodo.
I don't think AZA would allow that.
Yeah.
But
I don't know, man. It's just what I thought.
Yeah, no, definitely the prey items, and we do have like a bungee. And our male always puts on a show where we hang like a rabbit or something from the ceiling of the habitat, and he will just like basically stand on his back legs and grab onto it and try to pull it down. It's awesome.
That sounds like epic. That sounds so cool to see.
How do we get behind the scenes of watching them do that?
Yeah.
So we do
possible?
it for the public. We do it for the public to see. We want to show the public this, so we do it on public side. We do it once a month, but I am currently the one who schedules all their feeds and is in charge of their nutrition at this point. So if you guys ever want to make the trip down, we can coordinate something. You can see some cool stuff.
Yeah, we got to do that.
First week of October, I plan on being in Tampa, so I'm coming to see you.
Yeah, hit me up. You can meet some giant tortoises too.
So what?
You guys have the Aldabras there still?
What was that?
Do you guys have the Aldabras there?
Yeah, we have Aldabras and Galops.
When did you guys? Oh man, that's
How big?
The Galops, we have a huge Galop. He's he's 500 pounds. His name's Winston. And he came from San Diego, and he was the face model for E.T. in the 80s.
Whoa.
That's awesome.
That's really
Even
cool.
though I used to be deathly afraid of E.T., but that's totally awesome.
Valid, yes.
Yeah.
So with the Komodos, how big of a enclosure are they in? I've seen it, but I can't really what are the dimensions? Like how big of an enclosure do they need?
So for reading the manual, actually I read the Komodo Dragon Husbandry manual recently, and it says that they require about 300 square feet. I don't know the exact square footage of our habitat. It is bigger than my 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment that I'm in right now. Ours are not quite fully grown quite yet. They have plenty of room, but we are in the near future looking to expand the habitat a little bit more out to just give them more space. But since the juveniles occupy one of our habitats, there's one adult on habitat, and then we switch them out. So the next day, the other adult will be out, and one hangs out in the night house.
Okay.
Because I remember they had the big enclosure, and then at one point, when you guys got more, there was the divider put in between it. And it was like the smaller dragons were over on the left side, and the big dragon was on the right. Or it could be reversed.
Yeah, so we have basically our big adult enclosure, and then on the other side, across from orangutans, we have our juvenile habitat that at this point only holds one juvenile, because at a certain point, Komodo dragon will be a Komodo dragon. They don't necessarily get along with each other after a little bit. But really cool to see. They just turned a year old, too, so.
Now, what's the growth rate on them for the first year?
So we like to take it slow. It was our first time breeding and raising juvenile Komodos, so it has been such a huge collaborative effort of reaching out to other zoos. I reached out to someone from Australia who worked at Australia Reptile Park, and it's like this whole community of people who love Komodo dragons is just like more than happy to share this information. So it was really, really nice. But we try to make sure that they don't gain more than 10% of their body weight per month. So we like it really slow. Right now, so when they hatched out, they were on average around 100. We had small ones, then we had bigger ones. I'd say average around 120 grams maybe, and now they're in the 200s. So they've doubled in size, some of them.
How many did y'all produce?
That's a big baby.
How many did y'all produce?
6 of them. So
wow.
we had 3 boys and 3 girls. So that's
perfect.
That's a lot.
Now are they temp sexable, or like do you incubate them at different temperatures to get males and females?
So no, actually, and this was a really cool part of the process. When we saw that there was development inside the egg when we candled them, and we started to see that happening, we actually had our veterinarians pull blood from the eggs, from the veins inside of the eggs, send it off, and we were able to sex the eggs before they hatched.
Whoa.
So that's how we found out we had an even split, and that's also because we wanted to make sure they weren't partho. So with Komodo dragons, partho clutch, it's all males. So the fact that we had some females, we knew that they did their job.
Wait, just note that one. That's from an AZA person saying that if it was a partho clutch, it would be exact opposite of the mother. So they would all be males. Just remember that one.
Yeah.
So we had that argument.
No.
So our male Titus, he is actually partho dragon. So it's really interesting that he went on to, fertilize his own young and.
It's like the whole point of partho.
Like that.
It's pretty cool. That's really cool.
That was my argument. Okay, that was my argument.
I was agreeing with you. Now, I kind of want to get back on like the obese Komodos. Are you just doing like enrichment? Is your main enrichment going to be the carcass feeding? Like I know Quetzal Dwyer over at Reptilandia. I know they're doing a lot of like they're just letting. Obviously, they're a private facility, so they can do it. But I'm sure you've seen it. They just let the Komodo like free roam. Are like
Yeah.
what kind of enrichment are you doing, or is it just going to be the carcass feeding really?
So for our adult dragons, it is, we can consider the carcass feed enrichment, but it is kind of part of their life. It's part of their husbandry, right?
Mm-hmm.
So at a certain point, it doesn't necessarily become enrichment when it's something we do regularly. For enrichment, we will either give them like small snacks like chicken egg. I'll hide quail, especially after a female had laid eggs and I want her to get more calcium and fatten up a little bit when she's looking pretty thin. We'll bury quail or bury rats or hide them in the trees around the habitat. We'll do a lot of scent marking, like we actually have like a bottle of deer urine scent and stuff like that, and we scent the habitat. We will give them new items to explore and maybe hide a treat in there, or we found out recently that they really like the smell of oranges for some reason, and we had this big ball and like rubbed oranges on it, and they loved it. They pushed it around. They were really like inquisitive.
I wonder if they would eat them. Have you tried feeding it, or I guess can you feed it to them?
We didn't give them like the actual orange, and they didn't try biting on the ball or anything. I think it was just a new smell that they were just trying to figure out.
Yeah, because the one thing I remember saying about every Komodo I've seen in captivity is I want to see a Komodo doing their whole walk, and they're just being impressive. But every time I see one in captivity, they're always just lounging out. I'm like, poor dragon.
Yeah.
I want to see you running around and doing like awesome dragon things.
For sure. It definitely depends on what time of day too, but our dragons are pretty active. Like the moment I open the ship door and let whoever's going outside for the day, they do that Komodo walk. They make their rounds through the whole habitat. They'll smell, either the male or female or vice versa from the day before. And especially during breeding season, like our female digs like crazy. You can watch her all day dig a 6-foot hole. Like it's really incredible.
That's cool.
So now as part of the breeding thing, do you guys do anything special for nest boxes, or does she just dig and bury wherever?
She just digs. She has plenty of dirt. There's a dig barrier that goes deep, deep down. But she just digs. She tests. She goes to different places in the habitat. Will dig a little bit, test where she wants it, and then when she finds the spot, she'll spend days digging.
Oh wow! How long does it take for her like to lay per se? Like, is it a quick thing, or is she like kind of spending a whole day sitting there on the nest laying eggs?
It's kind of like a build-up, right? So you're going to see a lot of digging. I feel like we usually see digging for weeks. And then basically you want to look out for her if she backfilled her burrow. And if she did, that's when I look at her body condition, and I look at the base of that tail, and I look at that tummy. And if she looks deflated, I'm like, you laid your eggs.
How many has she laid for you guys? Like clutches?
So she, it was hard to get an exact count because there's going to be some fertile and infertile in the clutch. And if we don't get to the nest right away, sometimes the male will come out, and usually it's when it's infertile. He'll come out, dig up the hole, and he'll eat some, and I'll find them in his poop and stuff. But average around 20 in mid-20s, she's been laying. Yeah. Wow.
And how many clutches has she had?
So she has had one fertile clutch, and that was our babies that we hatched out. But she's been laying for us for a few years now.
Oh wow!
I want to say the last 5 years. They started off as slugs. Just her body's just going through the motions of reproductivity.
Mm-hmm.
But she's really cool because she always double clutches.
Huh.
She always double clutches for us, which is really interesting.
That is super interesting. Now you only got one fertile clutch. Like her second clutch was a dud.
So we weren't actually thinking she was going to lay a second clutch. And she did end up laying those, and we found them eventually, and they didn't really look fertile. I just noticed, like, wow, all of a sudden you look really tiny. I think we should dig up the yard. And they didn't look fertile to me. We do have them copulate every year, even if we're not trying to hatch out dragons, it's healthy for our female. It's healthy for them to go through those natural behaviors. The species survival program tells us when, how many, or if they want us to produce dragons from this pair.
Okay.
So now, just out of curiosity, because we've talked about this before about like different AZA facilities that breed different animals. And why is it that if you have such an endangered animal, because Komodos are still fairly endangered, aren't they? Well, why would they tell you to stop breeding if the numbers are dwindling in the wild?
It's for genetic preservation. It's basically there's people where it's their sole job to look at these animals individually and look at their genetic history and their family tree and lineage, and for the best genetic diversity for the species in human or in managed care. That's going to be the best option for them. For the Komodo dragon, at least, what they're struggling from is human encroachment and habitat fragmentation. And at the moment, there's not really a solution for that. So we're not exactly breeding and releasing. So this is managing these populations in managed care at zoos.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Gotcha.
I remember at the alligator farm, I think we had 2 males, and we were going to trade one of our males for a female. I think it was maybe the Bronx Zoo. I don't know if they have Komodos. It was up north, but I think it was near New York. And like they had the trade all set up and everything, and then like last minute it just fell through because it turned out that like the male that we had and the female we were getting were genetically related, and so we were like, oh dang it. That really sucked.
That'll do it for sure. The species survival plan is a really cool program. It's like just a big dating app for these endangered species, and they just tell me what accession numbers, which individuals they want me to pair, and they kiss.
Now, how many do you just have? The one pair of Komodos there? Okay.
Yeah, so we have one adult pair, and currently we have 4 of our juveniles. One of our juveniles, Dracus, went to Busch Gardens, and another one often went to Little Rock, Arkansas.
Awesome.
So now Busch Gardens is going to have Komodos.
Yeah, so they have him on display, and he's doing so good. I'm glad he's local, because that little dragon, Dracus, he came out of the egg just social. He, like, the pictures for the thumbnail where I have, like, a dragon on my shoulder, or any pictures I have where the dragon is voluntarily interacting with me, it's most likely Dracus.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Yeah.
Now, did you ever get nipped by any of the babies?
We're really, really careful with that. When they first hatched out of the egg, and you grab them from the first time out of the egg box, and it's their first few hours of life. It did happen one time, but it wasn't anything too major. It was like the tiniest nip on my knuckle. But we handled them really safely, and it's really interesting because their first instinct really is not to bite. They try to flee. They try to evade. They hardly lash out at us with using their mouth. Oh. Yeah, they just try to run away, if anything.
That's cool. I did not expect that. I would expect them to be super bitey as babies.
Now, so do they tail whip like the other monitors too? Like even the big ones?
Do they what?
Tail whip at all?
Yeah, they do. So I love tiny little tail whips from a Komodo dragon is like the cutest thing in the world. But that's going to be the first thing that they do. They'll give you a dirty look and they'll whip that tail to be like, please leave.
Are the adults, do they also tail whip?
They do. Yeah, they will. They will. If you annoy them, they'll rear that tail back a little bit, and then that's when like, okay, gotta back off.
Yeah, that's not good. That's
Now,
not good.
have you actually gotten tail whipped by one?
No, I have not. No, thankfully.
That would hurt. That'd be like a straight up whip to your leg.
Oh, for sure. What's really interesting too about the juveniles is we're starting to see behaviors of them hiding underwater. So sometimes when they're scared, or I don't want to say scared, but they don't necessarily like being picked up against their own will. And when they evade from us, they actually will go into their pool and hide, and you can see them tongue flick underwater and stuff. And it's so amazing to watch them try to do that. And they'll just sit down there and close their eyes, but they make it really easy to pick them up after that.
Yeah, that sounds a lot like my mangrove monitors and my blue tails. They did the same thing. Like they love just hiding under the water to get away from you.
Yeah.
I've seen that in tree monitors.
Really?
Oh, go ahead. Wait, what was that?
Tree monitors, or not usually hiding, but I've seen tree monitors searching for food underwater. Tree monitors are my jam. That's one thing. They're my favorite, one of my favorite groups of animals for sure.
Yeah, I was jealous when I saw you got that Cordensis because I fell in love with that little girl the first time I went to Tampa Zoo because that's my all-time favorite tree monitor species.
Oh my god, me too. I named her Lagatha. She's here. She's at home now. She's at least 18 years old.
Oh my god.
Yeah, she's really old. She's at least 18. She has no teeth, poor thing. She's, she goes to the vet regularly. We have a really good vet. But, she still eats like crazy and is really quick and seems like a happy girl. But yeah, she's a really old lady.
Wow. What kind of, was that the only tree monitor y'all have, or do you have others?
Yeah, that was the only tree monitor that we had, and I fell in love with her. So when the building went down, they donated her out to me.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's really cool. At least I guess that's something really cool about being at a facility like that, where you've been taking care of them for a long time. So, hey, she's old. We don't have a spot for her anymore. Take her home and do it. Kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's the fun thing about herps is we can literally take our home with us. The Africa team can't take their okapi home. You can't take an elephant home. You can't take a tiger home. But these animals, these small little animals that we bond with, we just had that special opportunity too. So,
just don't bring a Komodo to your two-bed.
Now, with going back to the baby Komodos, when they first hatched out, what did you put them in, and what are they in now, setup wise?
Yeah, so when they first hatched out, so they didn't all hatch out at one time. It was a period between August 21st to September 1st was that hatch window, which was a little bit earlier than we were expecting. We were expecting mid-September, so they hatched out after 215 days. It's a pretty long incubation period, to be honest. Yeah. And we had them in we had them in a huge 300-gallon aquarium, just so they can absorb their yolk sac and we can keep an eye on them and make sure that they're eating correctly in the first few weeks of their life. And then they eventually went to a really tall vertical habitat where we kept them in because juvenile Komodo dragons are extremely arboreal. They want to be in the trees. They want to be high. That's why they go to your head. If they climb on you, they go straight to your head because they want the higher ground.
I didn't know that.
To hide from you. Yeah. Oh, yeah. They love to go up. So if you ever come check out our juvenile, everyone looks down, but she's always in the perching up in the trees.
So you got to do me a favor. If you got to name one of the males, the next male you have, name him Obi. Just name him Obi because he's got the high ground.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
You have to.
Now, what are
that
they?
Would be awesome.
So, how tall of an enclosure is she in now, or are they in now?
So they're in pretty. So we have one of our girls on Hab, Inda. She's in a really tall. She's in that whole, basically second Komodo habitat that we have. So she's in a huge room. It probably goes up 8 foot. You know, we have
Wow.
perching probably right at 6 feet. And then our other 3, we have we found huge runs that our aviary team used to have, and we basically sectioned it off into 3 sections, and they have a lot of space. Square footage, I'm not too sure, but they have also about 8 foot vertical, and I'd even say 6 by 6 foot
Oh wow.
deep, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does.
Yeah.
So how?
So now, at what point do they go from being arboreal to more
That was what I was gonna ask.
terrestrial? Yeah.
I think once they get a little bit more heavy-bodied, thing about dragons is they're really good at going up, but they suck at coming down. So, like, our male dragon, he still tries to climb sometimes. Like, we have a ladder, or, like, a little ramp for him, and to this day, 70 pounds, he climbs up there. We didn't really want to promote him climbing in the case that he falls, but we took the ladder away and he climbs up the wall. But our female doesn't really climb anymore. So once they get heavy enough, I'd say probably 6-7 years, maybe you'll see them more like hang out on the ground. But our male Titus, he's 12 years old and he still tries to climb all the time.
So now, how old are those, like the wild ones you hear that are like 300 plus pounds?
I don't know. So there's been one record, and I honestly think it was like word of mouth, that a dragon lived into its 50s. I'd say a really old dragon is probably in its 40s. A lot of the ones that you see in the wild on Komodo National Park and stuff like that, they're fed by tourists a lot. So there's a big issue with them being fed by visitors of the island and tourists, and they're going to be pretty overweight over there. You know, everyone talks about a 300-pound dragon. That's a very, in my opinion, obese dragon. An adult male, probably half that size, 150, 160 pounds.
So they're really not as heavy as you think. I mean,
That's still a big ass lizard, though. 150-pound lizard is huge.
But I've heard stories of 100-pound blackthorns.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, 100-pound Asian water monitors. And so to think that a Komodo only weighs, like a healthy Komodo is only 150 pounds, it's just kind of shocking to me, because you think Komodo dragon, you think this just ominously large monitor. And only, and so really, I mean, if they're only supposed to be like 150 pounds, that's not that much bigger than a big Asian water monitor.
And this is all, like, obviously my experience with my dragons and seeing their growth rate, and also talking to other people. But I remember one time I was doing a chat and I mentioned, you know, they can get upwards of 300 pounds, and my coworker was like, that's not very healthy. You know?
Huh.
Well, and this is why we do this podcast, so we actually learn something, like actual factual knowledge about Komodos.
Yeah, I'm happy to provide it. I can talk reptiles and Komodo in my job forever. I love it.
Now, do you have, you said you have a pool for the young ones? How big is that pool, like gallons-wise? Like, is it...
It's a good size for them. I would say 50, 60 gallons for them. Our outdoor pools could be bigger. I see a lot of zoos, including our zoo, is going through a lot of renovations, a lot of revamp, trying to make really naturalistic habitats. I feel like zoos are kind of going through a renaissance period right now where they are focusing on natural behaviors and enrichment. And I want to say it's a zoo in Tennessee, I can't remember, but they had a huge Komodo dragon habitat with like a stream and a waterfall, and they utilize that. They'll swim, they'll utilize that. We have enough water where they can go in there and soak. Like, our dragons like to soak and hang out in the pool and have a pool day. But having more water feature and even deeper water would be so cool for them. They will utilize it.
Oh, wow. I was about to...
What's scarier than a Komodo dragon? Because Komodo dragon that swims.
Are they good swimmers? Like, from what you've heard?
They are. They like literally just kind of undulate their body like a croc a little bit.
Oh,
You know,
wow.
their tail goes around. They're really good swimmers. The little ones really zooming in the water.
Now, do you have to worry about like water parameters or water temps for the Komodos at all?
Not necessarily. Temperatures, not too much because the ones outside, it's warm outside. And then we keep our juvenile Komodo habitat at about 95 degrees. So it's really hot in there. So hanging out with them and building those relationships, we're like sweating. It's a lot. But yeah, and we just tap water for them, basically.
Okay.
We don't worry too much about that.
What is the basking temp in that for the juvenile enclosure?
Ooh, I think the hottest point we have, because I checked recently, because I had to recheck all of our UVB bulbs and heat lamps. The hottest point recently was 117.
Wow.
And I'll see them hang out there a lot, and they just come and go into the light as they please.
So it's honestly just like, it's at least for the young ones, it seems like kind of raising any other monitor. It doesn't seem too different than like raising another big species of monitor.
Yeah, we focused really heavy too on not showing them, and I think this is key for Komodo because it's different for my tree monitor. But we don't show them that the food comes from us. So like our adult dragons, we shift them off. We set up the food. We open the door. The food magically appears. They don't see it come from us. They're smart enough to make that connection. The little ones, we have feeding bins. Where we will actually put the food, have them go into the bins and discreetly put food in there. Well, they'll eat it, and they don't see it come from our hands or come from us, which is a huge help in hanging out with them because they, it doesn't take much. If you hand them a piece of food or something, they catch on.
Yeah, the last thing you want is a Komodo dragon thinking you're the food.
Yeah.
Yes. Correct.
I guess that also answers my question of do you target train the Komodos?
Yeah, we do, and it's really cool because a lot of people say like if you only feed them once a month, every 4 to 6 weeks, how do you train them? How do you reward them for good training behavior? And they don't really forget too often. Like we have a target that has an orange tip. And I can stand outside their window, call their name, and they see that, and they come to me. And just recently, our male dragon was getting a little bit lazy about it. It was taking us a little bit longer to get him in. It took me one day where I had him finally come, touched his nose to it, gave him a chicken egg. Did it one more time, gave him a chicken egg. And then he's back to normal. He sees that, and he's motivated again to come to the target. So they remember. They're easy to train.
So what you're telling me is that if I get one of those little paper fans and I put an orange dot in the center of it, I can stand in front of the glass and they'll come to me?
Not necessarily, because they know they're people too, but I like that. That'd be interesting to see.
Now the shift boxes, do both Komodos go in there overnight, and like they have separate shift boxes, I'm assuming?
Yeah, so they don't really go. We do have like boxes in their night house that we would use as transport boxes that we keep in there so they're familiar with them and they go in and out. But they don't necessarily go into boxes. They go into like a den.
Okay.
And they know once you open that shift door and they hear that door open, they're like, oh, time to go in. And they come right in.
Is there a reason why you don't leave one of them out overnight?
We do. So if weather permits or temperature, rain doesn't matter. But if temperature permits, like the summertime, we always have one outside overnight. So whoever was outside all day will spend outside. We give them the option. We'll open the door, but they usually sleep outside.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Now, not so much that you have to worry about it in Florida, but has there been any word on them brumating at all in colder temperatures? Or because you have that indoor, out, or because places have the indoor-outdoor for them that they don't have the need to do that?
In my experience, I haven't really seen any brumation behavior from them because there is a temperature cutoff. I think once it hits like 60 degrees, we'll go ahead and have them come into the warm night house for the day until it warms up a little bit, or we'll come out and release them later on. But I haven't really seen any brumation behavior. The winter is actually their breeding season, so if anything, we see a lot more activity.
Huh. Not expect winter to be the breeding season. Now, I'm still
kind of shocked that I'm still shocked at the 215 days for the incubation period.
Yeah, and that was our first one hatched. It was August 21st to September 1st, so someone a little bit longer, but it was a long time, man. It was a long time.
Well, we had lace monitors that, the blue one that we got, the other 3 eggs hatched at 220 days, and he went all the way to 245. We were getting ready to throw the egg out, and then he picked.
Oh
wow. And I mean, they're close relatives to the Komodo dragon. That's really interesting.
Huh.
And, well, that makes me feel better, so now I can say Bruce is like a Komodo.
Well, you did say that y'all's Komodos hatched out earlier than expected, so is the expected time around that, like, 240, 250?
So we always heard 9 months. Every, facility was like, it takes about 9 months. So from when they were laid, September would have been right around 9 months. We incubated them. Their range for incubation is 84 to 87 degrees. I believe we incubated them at 85 degrees.
Okay.
Wow, so even on the cooler side, and they still hatched out pretty quick.
Yep. And really large eggs, too. On average, the eggs weighed about 212 grams.
Wow.
So, size-wise, I mean, not that we can tell because we have
no idea. I don't have
any idea how big they are.
Like, pretty large, like a goose egg.
Oh, yeah. So that's like double the size of one of the lace eggs.
Mm-hmm.
That's so so winter comes and y'all are getting ready to breed them. How do you introduce them? Do you just open the shift boxes and let them go together, or how do you do that?
Yeah, so I think something really pivotal that was, besides our male just getting larger and more mature, something pivotal into us being successful breeding is installing what we call a howdy door. So their dens are next to each other, right? But there's a shift door in between, so they never see each other. But we installed basically a fence, a grate, where they can see each other, but they can't quite get to each other. And we'll open that howdy door and let them kind of see each other, smell each other. In the beginning, it's lots of hissing, it's lots of tail whipping at each other. But eventually, we'll come in the morning and we see that they're sleeping next to each other on each side of the door.
Oh.
And once we kind of start seeing that behavior, and our female is really good at standing up for herself. When we start seeing her to back down, that's when we're like, okay, she's being submissive. We can try to actually put them together. And when we put them together, we put them on the big hab, and it's cool because it's also for people to see. But they just have a lot more space in case one needs to get away. The night house is a little bit cramped, so if one started to evade, it could probably get hectic pretty quickly.
Have you had it get hectic? Like, have you had anything start looking bad?
Yeah, so in the past, before Titus got big enough to stand up for himself, our female, she combats like a male. Like, she fights like a male dragon. So she would kick his butt. So what you want to see in Komodo dragon breeding is when you put them together, you want to see the male chase the female, right? And then the female submisses. She would go after him and just kick his butt. But when he got big enough, he would basically, I would relate it to body slamming her, and she's like, "Oh, you're strong now. Okay, it's fine. Do your thing." There are times where we did have to intervene, but like I said, it's kind of well practiced. It's a whole production, and we have enough people to do it very safely.
And that's when you're using the shields or the poles and shields per se.
Yeah. So the push boards are kind of a new thing, but that's just because Titus has gotten so big. In the past, it's been just kind of grabbing their tails and separating them and putting one into the night house,
That seems like it could go wrong in so many ways.
Yeah, it's like you're in the zone, but you know, every day with my job is really different, and that's why I love it.
Now, have there like injuries? I'm sure can be serious during breeding season too.
Yeah, but you'd be so surprised of how fast a Komodo dragon can heal. It's crazy because their teeth are no joke. Their claws are no joke. And when our juveniles started to kind of get feisty with each other, and it was time to separate them, they had pretty gnarly marks on them. But the next day, it's like the wound is closed. The wound is closed, and they're already healing. But when we do introductions for breeding, we have our vet staff, like we let them know before we do intros that we're getting started, just in case they need to come down and check on one of our dragons.
Have you had a bad injury to occur?
Thankfully, no, not really. Like the little ones, the vets need to get involved. Some of them needed their wounds glued or needed a couple stitches or something. But with our adult dragons, thankfully, I haven't really seen too much damage.
That's good. That's a good thing.
I've definitely heard horror stories about breeding crop monitors. Like
I can imagine.
Pretty bad.
Croc monitors are up there with Cuban croc for me, where I'm just like, that is quite a beast. Like, respect like no other for them.
Yeah, especially one that escapes the crate that it's in. And
yeah, for sure.
So y'all haven't had any injuries. Like I'd imagine there'd be at least like one or two situations where you've had to have the vets get involved with the adults. So I guess that shows that they're kind of used to each other and they're well introduced. Have you noticed that with as the time goes on after you keep introducing them to each other that it just gets easier to introduce them?
So it's very interesting because the first time that Titus was big enough to really pin her down and she was submissive, he had no clue what he was doing. He had no clue. He was like raking her and doing all that correctly, but he just couldn't get the tail lifted and couldn't get under. And he improved with every introduction. And then when we bred them again this past year, he kind of went right to it and he knew what he was doing. So he has improved definitely over time with copulation, and it's made it a lot easier.
So has she gotten to the point...
Once they mate, they're together for the whole day. We separate them when we go home for the day, just because we don't want to leave them overnight. But when they are locked up and copulating, that's like 8 hours.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So how about the female? Because you said that she was originally chasing him down, but she stopped when he got bigger. Does she try anything anymore, or is it just that, like, she's just realized that there's no point?
She will at first. So when we first open the door, usually she'll hiss and she'll look at him, and you'll see that classic dinosaur fight where they're both on their back legs and they're kind of giving each other hugs. And it just takes kind of one good, hey, I'm the boss, I'm strong now. And she's like, okay.
How tall are they when
Oh, go ahead.
What was that?
I was just saying, how tall are they when they're on their back legs?
Oh, I mean, their tail is super long, so probably like, I might be exaggerating, maybe 4 feet, 4 foot.
Okay.
Depends. Our female is a little bit smaller, but it's really cool to watch them do that.
That's got to be cool.
So your female is smaller than Titus, so she weighs a little bit less than him?
Yeah, so she's actually 14 and he's 12. But she is about 40 pounds and he's right around 65 pounds right now.
Wow. That amazes me because I'm still like, it just seems like such a small lizard in comparison to like even the stuff that we have. It's like, that's like one of the celebensis. I mean,
yeah, female dragons are pretty, like, they're not too big. They're a little dainty. Anjai, she'll probably grow a little bit more, but she's really plateaued in her growth.
Oh, wow.
Now, is there Like, what is the percentage that they're gaining like per month of weight?
So I'm not too sure, and I'm actually in the middle of calculating that right now. I'm trying to track trends. So at the moment, I'm weighing the food that I offer them, and then I'm weighing the food afterwards and calculating how much that they've actually ingested. Because we'll give them a meat shank that's on a bone, and we hang it by the bone, so they can't eat the bone, so they strip all the meat off of it. So I see exactly how much they ingested, and I'm trying to compare that to their body weight. I don't have too much data at the moment for that, but I'm trying to kind of get that more under a microscope to really just have that information to see what a proper growth rate would be for a Komodo dragon, or at least for us at our facility.
Yeah, because it sounds like you guys are definitely doing it right. I think slow growth in all reptiles is the way to go. So I'd be really interested in seeing like that data, like what the proper growth rate actually is for Komodos.
And it really speaks to it since we were successful in breeding them. I'm super proud of that because I've talked to people at Zoo Miami, and I've a lot of people have reached out to our team trying to get more information about how we do those carcass feeds. Something when you work at an AZA facility, everything has to go through the veterinarians, right? And so that can be a long, painstaking process sometimes if you want to enact changes to anything.
Now, you said you don't feed them the bone or anything like that off like the leg shanks. Now, do they have the jaw power to actually crack those bones or anything?
They don't. So their skull isn't made for pressure. Their skull is made actually more for pulling. But they're able to swallow the whole bone whole. Right. So that's how they would get it. When we feed them rabbits and stuff, we want them to eat the bones. We want them to get that calcium. It's just for the meat shanks. It's easier to hang it, drill into the bone, and hang it at the bone.
Yeah, I was just always curious as to how, like, if their bite was actually super strong, something like that.
Yeah, it's those teeth, man. It's just a mouthful of steak knives. That's really what gets them. It's so cool.
Yeah, I mean, because I know like the African rock monitors, so your black throats, your white throats, your Spanish, all have serious jaw strength.
Oh yeah.
And like the Asian water monitors, they don't have anything in comparison.
Yeah.
Like if you've gotten bit by a big black throat or a big white throat, it hurts. But
I bet.
Just the pressure wise. But the Asian water monitors will cut you and do some serious damage, but it's not like you don't feel any pressure on it.
Oh yeah, it's definitely with the dragons. Like their teeth will slice you up when accidents happen, and when there are unfortunate situations when keepers do get bit at facilities. Usually something goes around, and we get to see read an article or something of what went wrong or what may have happened and stuff. So we just try to learn from that, but some of them come with pictures, and they're very gnarly. It's not anything I would ever want to encounter for sure.
Ooh, I can't imagine what those pictures look like. Because I've seen some gnarly, like, blue tail croc monitor bites, and so I can only imagine, because they have big teeth, blue tails and croc monitors, but I feel like the Komodos, just the strength of them, like the pulling back, is probably going to do more damage than those big teeth will.
You want to know something funny? What animal terrifies me sometimes more than a Komodo dragon is prehensile tailed skinks. I know you have them.
They're so mean.
I think it's the family too that we had at the zoo, where it was just like working with piranhas, especially when we had all the babies. But that's one animal where I love all reptiles, I love all the animals, but if I could go without, it would probably be them.
Yeah, mine are pretty chill for the most part. They were used at in an educational program at the Montgomery Zoo.
Nice. So, like, they're beautiful. I saw you post pictures of them.
Thank you so much. They're very chill, but like sometimes I'll open the cage and you can just tell, like, you can just tell they'll puff up and they'll look at me and I'm like, I'm not gonna mess with you all the day. And there's been times where I open it up and they'll come charging out, mouth open, and I'm like, "What are you, like a monitor? What is wrong with you?"
Yeah. Oh my gosh, they're terrifying to me. They're cool animals. I love anything with a prehensile tail for sure. But yeah, talking about bites, that always freaked me out.
And it hurts. They have some bad bites. I've been bit too many times, and I'd rather take bites from like our rhino iguanas or our mangrove monitors than them.
Really?
Yeah, maybe not an adult rhino iguana, but like we have a 3 or 4 year old, and I'd rather get bit by him. I have than the monkey tails.
I love cyclura. Cyclura are awesome. I went to Grand Cayman and worked with the blue iguanas over there for about a week, and it was an amazing experience. They're amazing.
What did you do over there?
So I volunteered. My coworker Jason and I went on our own time and dime, and we went and just volunteered our time to the blue iguana conservation that they have at Queen Elizabeth Botanical Park. It's really an amazing conservation story. There weren't, and I could be wrong about this number, but I think there are about 20 wild blue iguanas left. And with that conservation project, there's much more now, and they hatch them out every year. It's really cool.
That's awesome.
And they're blue.
The blues, that's the Lewisii, correct?
Yes, okay. That's the Lewisii.
Yeah, those are gotta be the prettiest cyclura, for sure.
Oh, I know, they're awesome.
You guys and your scientific names are killing me, because I'm like, huh?
Wow, honestly, I'm not that good with scientific names, and I saw you guys were posting about the podcast a lot, which I really appreciate. Very cool. And people were getting stoked about it, and I had someone message me, and they were like, I have this, this, and this, and I'm like, ooh, I gotta Google some things real fast.
Well, and it's like I've said, like I got really big into African cichlids, and everything African cichlid is all scientific name because there's just so many different ones.
Yeah.
And my brain just doesn't have that much memory to go and say, I can learn all these monitors and all of these other reptiles scientific names. I know all the African cichlids, but forget anything else.
Oh yeah, I look at some of the scientific names, and I like yellow tree monitor.
I don't know how to pronounce it.
Dude, I look at it and I'm like,
I can probably spell it, but I cannot pronounce it. Every time I look at it, I'm like, how do you say this word?
Yeah, my brain is just like, ignore it, moving on. You know what it is.
Yeah, that's the one. I'm like, I'll just call it by its common name on that one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wow. So, do y'all have any cyclura at Tampa Zoo?
We do. We have one. He's a Cuban iguana that my coworker Jason named Sandwich. So he's a Cuban sandwich. And he was actually a stowaway on a boat from Guantanamo Bay.
Oh, wow.
And I believe FWC was like, do you guys want him? And they gladly took him. And my coworker Jason worked with him really well. And he's super well trained. He's really snuggly. He's the flippin' best.
They're amazing. They have such great personalities. Like, once they get out of that baby stage, they're just puppy dogs.
Yeah, no, and they're so smart, and they like to play and everything. Before that, I've only had experience in vet hospitals with like green iguanas, and they have quite a temperament on them. So cyclura helped me appreciate iguanas more, for sure.
Yeah, that's cyclura. That's my girlfriend. That's her thing. She loves all cyclura, all iguanas. She likes the ctenosauras as well.
Heck yeah, that's awesome.
Which one's the Pictonatus? That's the
ctenosaura.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's cool. We're actually about to get a conspicuosa, the San Esteban spiny tail.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for that. We'll be getting that next month. But okay, back to the Tampa Zoo talk.
Right.
Would you ever be interested in working with anything besides the mammals at the Tampa Zoo? Like, is there or besides the reptiles, is there like a mammal or something there that like you're like, I would love to work with you one day?
Koalas.
They do have koalas. I love carnivores. I love big cats, and I love bears. And I also have a love for bats. Working full time, I can't see myself with anything besides reptiles, it would be aquatics. We don't have a huge aquatic selection right now. It's really only stingray that aquatics has. But let's say I was at another facility and I couldn't do herps, I would do the fish for sure.
Okay, wow. Would you, if you didn't end up at Tampa, would you have probably ended up at the Florida Aquarium then?
So with the way how many people are seeking these jobs, yeah, I would have taken anyone who would take me, honestly. I actually interviewed for the herps department for Zoo Tampa and Busch Gardens at the same time, but I'm really happy I ended up at Zoo Tampa.
One of my favorite reptile exhibits is at Busch Gardens, and it's where they have the rat snakes, and they have that monster yellow rat.
Yeah.
Well, they did have the monster yellow rat. This thing was like 2.5 inches in diameter and just
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, with the big wagon wheel in it and all that stuff. When you walk into the cave, they have it right to the right-hand side. It's just awesome. And you always saw that big giant yellow rat, and it's like, I want you.
Yeah. No, they have a lot of cool animals over there. At Zoo Tampa, we have a lot of really cool species. Like I work with gharial. That's amazing. But we don't have a heavy or like a large reptile population at the zoo right now. I would like to work with different, more venomous. I currently work with all 6 Florida native species of venomous, but I would like to kind of expand that and work with more lapids and one day just get used to that type of behavior and stuff like that.
Now, do y'all have a lapids and all that, or do you only have the native?
Just the coral snake.
Oh, you just have oh, wow! I thought you had like.
You guys got rid of the eastern diamondback and the cottonmouth and stuff.
No, as far as a lapid.
Oh, okay.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah, but we do have we have canebrakes, eastern diamondbacks, copperhead, cottonmouth. I'm missing coral snake, and I think I'm pygmies. Yeah, all 6.
Okay. And do y'all plan on getting anytime getting more venomous, or do you think you're going to kind of keep it a native only?
I think as far as venomous goes, we're sticking to Florida natives for sure. I've been looking at the blueprints for the potential blueprints. You know, things change over time for what our new Discovery Center is going to be. And we're planning on doing a mixed species, like Florida habitat. We're having, pine snakes and other venomous snakes together that would be in the same habitat.
That would be cool.
So that'll be pretty cool.
Now, what is, you probably can't say this, but not that you're getting it, but what would be a dream reptile for you to work with at the zoo?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I've always wanted to work with blue trees. Oh, Mengshan vipers.
Yeah.
So those are so rad, and those and bushmasters have really piqued my interest lately, and I would love to work with them.
You guys can have your venomous. No, nothing about it. I want to deal with.
Yeah,
I love it.
Canebrake rattlers stole my heart. I thought the Eastern Diamondbacks were going to be my favorite just because they're so iconic, but the canebrakes are just so cool. I want to breed everything, but I want to breed them really bad.
Do y'all have a pair? Are you guys trying to work on that?
We do have a male and female pair. We have seen copulation, but it is not it's not a project that we're working on. If it happens, it happens. Because they'll copulate on habitat and everything like that. But it's not something that we're pushing right now. We're really trying to hatch out eastern indigo snakes.
Okay.
That's top tier right now.
Yeah.
How many of those do you guys have?
So we have 4 adult. We have not been successful so far. We've gotten close with hatching them out. But we did do a Head Start program, and my coworkers were able to release some back into the wild as part of that Head Start program, which was really cool.
Yeah,
but
cool.
I want to hatch them out so bad.
So you've gotten
No.
eggs, you just haven't hatched them?
Correct. It's actually really hard. Like, indigo snake eggs are huge, right, compared to the body of the female, and their eggs have almost like sandpaper grit to them. So it's really hard for that female to pass those eggs. It takes a lot of energy, it takes a lot of muscle. So we've had issues with egg binding, which is not uncommon in indigo snakes. So right now we're working on giving them plenty of exercise. We want to exercise them, build up her muscles, and see if that helps with her pushing out those eggs naturally.
Now, is it allowable in an AZA facility to allow them to hatch the eggs themselves?
Is it allowed?
Yeah.
I would say it's probably allowed, but for best chance of survival, we will incubate them ourselves, because it may be unfavorable conditions where they are.
Sure.
Or there could be flooding or something in their burrow, or something happens like that. It's just way more controlled if we take them.
Now, how do you have all the indigos? Are they all? I'm assuming they're not kept together, correct?
Correct. Yeah, they're in nice outside runs. I don't know if you guys have seen any pictures from the Orion Center of Indigo Conservation, but they have beautiful outside runs, and they have plenty of space, and we make fake gopher tortoise burrows out of Coleman coolers that we dig into the ground, and we attach a tunnel that come out to the top. That as their fake burrow, and they'll lay their eggs and hide in there. It's really cool.
We had that at the alligator farm, and I was so young. I was like, why is there a cooler buried under the ground for these snakes?
Yeah.
I guess looking back at it, that makes perfect sense.
Hey, they make great lay bins too.
Now, how big are the four y'all have?
So our biggest male is probably, we just call him Big Boy. He's probably right around 5 foot, 6 foot. He's our biggest one right now. Our females, or we have one female, Cleo. She's probably around 4 foot. I would say between 4 to 6, generally, with our 4.
That's
Now,
some good size indigos.
what do you guys feed them?
So have you guys heard of Reptilinks?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Reptilinks are actually a really cool option. Shout out to my coworker Spencer for having this idea and getting them in. It's a really cool way to get them more diverse prey items, because indigo snakes actually eat a lot of small prey items, and they eat more frequently. So our female that we're trying to kind of bulk up and get ready for breeding, we're feeding her every 3 days. Yeah, it took a toll on her when she laid her eggs, so she needs to gain the weight a little bit. But we do mice and chicks, but in the wild they're eating a lot more frogs and stuff like that. So we get the bullfrog Reptilink, we give them the iguana Reptilink, the ground quail. And what I really like about Reptilinks too is you can add in insects. We don't do that necessarily for the indigo, but for like the Komodo dragons and stuff, it's a really cool option.
Now, how big are the Reptilinks you're feeding the indigos? If you're feeding them every 3 days, are they smaller ones?
They're like the larger ones that are about, I would say, like 3 inches.
Okay. Wow.
They do sell like smaller ones that are like 1 inch that we'll use for the little Komodos. But the Reptilinks could be hit or miss for the indigos. Some really like them. Some, it took them a while to warm up to it.
Now, not that this has anything that pertains, it's just more of a curiosity question on my sake, just for the invasive species, like the big marine toads. Do you think that has any effect? Like you were saying that they eat the toads and whatnot. Do you think the marine toads have any effect on the indigo snakes in the wild?
Ooh, I'm actually not too sure of that. What really affects them is is it snake fungal disease? A lot of wild snakes will get this fungal disease, and it affects indigo snakes a lot, and has in the past hampered their population. But as far as cane toads specifically, I haven't really heard or seen any interaction.
Now, do do y'all work closely with the Orion Society, or however you pronounce it, society?
Yeah, we do. So that's actually who supplies our indigo snakes.
Okay.
And Dr. Bogan, who works over there, he's came to our zoo and done talks, and he is so good at answering all of our questions or anything like that. So we work pretty closely.
I heard this thing. I think I heard it from someone that volunteered there, that a lot of the indigos, I'm not sure if it's the ones that they have or the ones that they're finding in the wilds, have crypto. Have you heard anything about that, like the crypto disease?
I have not, actually.
Okay.
I know that it can affect indigo snakes,
Mm-hmm.
Along with the snake fungal disease, but I haven't heard of any populations of it being super prevalent recently.
That's a good thing, at least. I didn't know how true that was. I was like, I heard that like down the grapevine, and I was like, I feel like majority of the indigo snakes having crypto. Like, I feel like that would be talked about more.
Yeah, I personally have not heard too much of it. Doesn't mean it's not going on,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel like it would have raised a lot of red flags.
Yeah.
Now, another thing that I have, I'm just curious of, as because you're the keeper or the keepers and whatnot. Do the keepers actually get to help build or help set up the enclosures, like with the enrichment? I mean, obviously with the enrichment items, but like, hey, this is what we need to have in these things, or like this is how we need to design it, or anything like that, or does it like some team comes in and they know the best thing to do, and then you go sit back and why'd they do that?
Yeah, so when it comes to Discovery Center, the new one, I'm not sure what route they're going to go, but up to this point, we have designed and completely built and created all of our habitats. So with spray foam, silicone, cocoa fiber, all that good stuff. Right now, I'm working on a crested toad habitat using cement and concrete, trying to make fake rock and stuff, making fake vines. We really design everything in the habitats. Yep.
So you guys don't use zoopoxy?
No, so I really want to use zoopoxy. Have you ever heard of Reynolds material?
Mm-hmm.
So we use Reynolds, and they have basically their own version of zoopoxy that we've used. But I've never used zoopoxy before. I feel like a lot of the time I can be successful with getting a natural look by either using real logs or rock,
Now, do y'all treat
You need to convince Mike to come down there, and Mike Stefani to come down there and help you out with zoopoxy. I'm sure he'd love to come help out with the Komodos.
Now, do you guys like the wood and stuff? Are you treating that? And if so, how do you go about treating the stuff you're putting in the enclosures?
We freeze everything.
Okay.
So any sand, any substrate, any logs, anything, we freeze them. When it comes to plants, we disinfect them with a water and hydrogen peroxide solution, and do kind of a little quarantine system with any of our plants. But generally, we freeze them.
Now with
so you do water and hydrogen peroxide on live plants?
Yeah. It's actually something I learned in amphibian school when disinfecting plants for amphibians. It's for a short amount of time. It's for about 5 minutes, and it's a diluted solution, but it does a trick.
Yeah, you gotta send me that, because I'd love, in the new crop monitor enclosure, I'm gonna put some nice big palm trees and stuff in there and
Awesome.
get some stuff done. So I need to figure out a good way to sanitize them, because the last thing I want is to get some crazy bugs or something.
Yeah,
I had that
happen with the we didn't treat one plant, and it had mites on it, and we had to deal with it on our rhino iguana. Actually, he just got cleared today. We've been dealing with that for the past 4 months. It's been a shit show.
Yeah, no, that's tough stuff to deal with. That we try our best to disinfect everything, but I know a lot of people bake stuff or boil stuff. We usually the zoo has a huge walk-in freezer, so we usually just stick some logs in there or something.
Now
I need one of those.
Now, do you guys have what is the quarantine process for any of the reptiles per se?
Yeah, so they go to the hospital annex, and we'll set up a nice quarantine temporary habitat for them. And it's roughly about a month of quarantine until they're cleared and we can bring them to our hab. But fecals are done, a lot of fecal tests are taken, and just observations to make sure, they're acting normal and stuff like that.
Now, any of these quarantine cages, are they grow tents or are they mostly like glass or PVC enclosures?
Usually are if they're temporary, they're usually glass or PVC.
Okay, I just want
now with the outdoor Komodos or any of the outdoor reptiles, do y'all worry about anything getting in and messing with them, like messing them up or anything like that?
Not really. So, with the habitats we have and the mesh that we use, any type of bigger or medium-sized mammal or something, because before we put our Komodo dragons in the big runs that they're in now, we set up camera traps just to see what animals are coming across that area during the day and at nighttime. And there's some raccoons, there's some possums, but they cannot get in and they cannot, get their hands in or anything like that. The big thing would probably be cane toads, and we have a protocol at the zoo where when we find cane toads, we take them to hospital and they humanely euthanize them.
Do you have to worry about bugs like fire ants or anything like that?
Yeah, we do get fire ants, and we'll treat with, we use 7 dust, which is pretty safe.
Yeah. You can actually put that on your chickens to get rid of
Really?
fleas. Yeah.
Huh.
Nice.
Get rid of fleas and ticks with 7 dust.
Now, besides the crocodilians and the Komodos, what would be another fun species of reptile that you get to work with that not many of us private keepers get to work with?
Ooh, we sent them all out, but Fiji iguanas.
Y'all had Fijis?
We had Fijis. At one point, I believe we had a quarter of the population in the U.S. at Zoo Tampa. That's how prolific they were breeding.
Whoa.
And I came on board when they were done breeding already, so I didn't get to experience breeding them, but I took care of a fair share of them, and they are really, really, really cool.
So what's kind of want to know, what's the husbandry and cage setup? How do you care for a Fiji?
So how we have them is we have them almost in screen chameleon cages, if that makes sense, tall screen, repti-breeze cages, or habitats. They like us to use the word habitat. And they did great outside. We would put them in maybe a shady spot, not directly in direct sunlight, give them plenty of perching, give them plenty of palm fronds and stuff to get into or hide if they wanted to. And we just put their food bowls in the tree with them and everything, and they're pretty easy to take care of.
What do they eat?
We mainly fed them, so they're omnivores. So we have insect days, and then we have salad days.
Okay.
So insect days, they would get crickets. Salad days, they'd get whole salad with fruits and veggies in it. So
were they trained at all?
No, no, they weren't. But they were really cool to handle. They weren't super flighty. They weren't super bitey either.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just flippin' gorgeous.
They're so pretty.
Now, do you guys get to get around any of the rules that FWC has about keeping certain things or feeding certain things? I know in Florida you can't have dubia roaches. Are you guys allowed to keep those and feed those just because of how good of feeders they are, insect feeders they are?
No, we do discoid.
No way.
Yeah, we can't. We can't get our hands on stuff like that or anything. So we have some discoid roaches that we feed out, crickets, and then from Josh's Frogs, we'll order in enrichment bugs like butterworms. If every once in a while, superworms. We don't feed out superworms too much. Hornworms, stuff like that.
Are you breeding your own crickets there?
Yeah, so we breed our own crickets, but we also get them in because we're not the only department that uses the crickets. Aviary uses them for birds, or ambassadors or Africa team will use them for enrichment for their animals. But if we want pinheads to feed to our frogs and our smaller guys, we do consistently breed pinheads.
And you're just ordering from Josh's frogs?
Yeah,
That's pretty cool.
I think at first we got it from Avipost, and then Avipost hasn't had any large crickets in lately. I think so. We have been doing Josh's frogs.
Shout out to Josh's frogs.
I know a lot of the time the summers in Florida, like you couldn't get any large crickets because of how they ship them. So, like to get large crickets in Florida in the summertime is impossible.
Yeah.
Oh, many times we in which I will say the companies are really good at replacing them or reimbursing you, but how many times we've opened boxes and they're just all dead.
Yeah.
You guys need to get on that grasshopper game.
Yeah, I was about to say, why?
Especially for the tree monitor.
Yeah, have y'all considered like messaging someone like Kai or Dean that work with the grasshoppers on such a big scale and like seeing if you can work something out like that?
So my coworker Spencer mentioned that he had someone he could reach out to. Again, it's one of those things where if we want to bring something in, one, we have to go through establishing them as an official vendor, and then two, it has to go through our vets, and our vets have to approve all of this. So there's kind of a lot of cogs in the machine to make things happen. But it's definitely something that's been on our radar. Grasshoppers would be an excellent feeder to get in.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever gotten them in for your cordensis?
I haven't. She seems to. So she has some dental disease. So I actually have to crush up her food for her. Doctor's orders. She has her own food processor that I use, and I use a lot of live crickets or flukers, canned dubia roaches, and the canned grasshoppers, and kind of mush that up, and I feed her portions of that, because whenever she tries to rub her face on the tree, when she tries to rip something apart, it usually causes some lesions on her mouth.
Oh, no.
So she really is like a geriatric old lady. I gotta make little bug porridge for her.
Is she the only reptile you keep, like, personally?
No. So I have her. I have a 1-year-old redfoot tortoise.
Oh.
I have a ball python named Marcus that I've had for I think like 5 years, and then I still have my first ever reptile I got when I was in the 8th grade, which is my corn snake. I've had her for like 15 years.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
What would be a dream reptile for you to personally keep?
Blue trees or black trees. I want to breed Becarii and Macraei really bad.
Yeah.
I'm definitely the type of keeper where I do a lot of the hard work at work, and when I come home, I really like minimalistic, to where I don't feel overwhelmed when I come home, and I don't feel like I have to clock back in and do a day of work all over again. Especially, I'm in a small apartment right now. So when I get a house, we plan on having a whole reptile room to dedicate to tree monitors. But right now, I'm enjoying my small collection.
Yeah, I know that feeling. When I stopped working at the reptile store I used to work at, I was like, I don't want to work full time with reptiles until it's like my own thing again, because you just get home and it, like you said, it's just like you're clocking back in for another shift because you have to take care of all your own reptiles. And I think I had at least 20 different species at the time, and so it was just literally just taking care of like my own zoo. And I was like, I downsized a lot and made it a lot more easier to maintain.
I don't know anything about helping out with your own personal zoo.
But is there any other monitors that you'd keep, or would it just be tree monitors, personally?
Personally, I mean, a black dragon is a dream, a dream animal. I really like those animals a lot. But I like the dwarf Indonesian species. The animals of Indonesia have my heart.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I would really stick to the trees, especially if I want to breed. I want to just hone in on that.
Now, with your AZA experience and all your experience, how would you ideally set up a tree monitor pair? Like, what would be your caging, and like, what would you do?
Ooh, that's a good question. I haven't had much experience, or like I haven't really observed much breeding for them. It is kind of, I think it is a little bit like almost like dragons, where they can be together and then you got to separate them, or else they can really do some damage to each other. I know that tree monitor husbandry, the bigger the better, right? So I think the standard right now is like the minimum is like a 4 by 2 by 3 or something like that. But much bigger than that. Definitely the goal is to have like a tall run, maybe 6 foot tall, by 4 foot deep for like a pair for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like if you have a pair, you're gonna need 2 habitats to separate them.
Yeah, that makes sense. I've seen some people, I don't know if you know the guy Father Blue on Instagram. He has, so I know he has, maybe it's Parker's Park, one of those big tree monitor guys. They have both cages next to each other, and they just have a shift door. Would you do something like that? So it's just you lift the door and let them interact, and then separate them easily.
Yes,
okay.
Definitely. That's something that we've talked about a little bit at the zoo, because in Discovery Center, there is a species survival program for the black tree monitors.
Sweet.
And I mentioned it to my boss, and he's a monitor guy too, and he was really interested in getting them in. And I think that'll be our route for a breeding pair, is having a shift door.
We're installing that in the new crop monitor enclosure.
Yeah, they're sweet. Now, when you get a species for the species survival program, is it just a pair, or do you like to try and get numbers on your side? How do you go about establishing that?
Like establishing, do you mean like which individuals?
Yeah, like how do you go about like establishing a group of like black tree monitors? Like, do you just go and get a pair, or do you get like a 2.2, or you know what I mean?
So it depends what's available. So I would have to reach out to the regional stud book keeper for black tree monitors and basically talk to them and see what they have available, and see how the program works. So ideally, I would get a 1.1 group in and work with that at first. Definitely, if we want to breed, but it all depends what's available currently at other facilities.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
I know Norfolk Zoo has all the tree monitors there, and I was actually very disappointed in their enclosures, or their, what's the word we're supposed to use?
Habitat.
Habitat. Their habitats were very underwhelming. But their black tree monitors are absolutely gorgeous, and I'll stand by the fact that the yellow trees are second next to the black trees in my book, because that yellow just pops.
Yeah.
My coworkers went to Daytona, and they sent me a picture of a yellow tree, and it was so gorgeous. Like, I had no idea that they were capable of being that like neon bright yellow, and it really made me hate them more.
I used to think they just looked like greens, and then I kind of started following Brian Susan's work at Sundown Reptiles a little bit more closely, and like that might have been the one you saw at Daytona. His are like neon yellow. It's insane.
They're my favorite from what I see online. They're my favorite producer right now. He has beautiful animals.
And he's got amazing setups and everything as well. But how, with setups in mind, and since we're on the tree monitor talk, what is there such thing as like overcrowdedness in AZA? Like, is there like is it a fine line between doing like giving the animal enough places to hide, but also being able to display them?
Yes. And that's a balance that we really need to keep in mind. So, for example, I mentioned earlier, I'm working on a crested toad habitat.
Mm-hmm.
We had issues before where we made a perfectly suitable habitat for them, but we had this habitat with 12 toads in it, and you cannot even see one. They would hide so good in the rock work. They would hide incredible. So I'm working on a habitat where I'm basically using PVC, pieces of PVC to make little hiding holes for them, for them to choose, but also they're shallow enough where they will be on display and people can see them. So you do have to find the balance. Sometimes if cages or habitats are too crowded, it's hard to see the animal, or even the animal, I find, sometimes gets a little bit overwhelmed, believe it or not. Right. So just setting them up and watching their behavior.
I know that was one of the big problems, trying to find the pygmy rattlers in the tunnel that you guys had down there. Like some of them were just impossible. Pygmies, I never saw the pygmy in all the years that I went to the zoo. It was like, I never see the pygmy. It's there, but I don't know where.
Yeah. No, I totally believe it. It's like that with our coral snake too. Like, he'll just wedge himself under like a rock or something, and he's just hard to see. No. But you want the animal to feel comfortable. You want the animal to feel secure and everything. So, also you have glass tappers too. So I'm sure that doesn't make the animal really want to come out too much. So I'm glad they're all getting a break from that right now with the building being down.
I'm really surprised they don't do like the double pane of glass, where they have the glass on the outside and then the cage behind the wall, to where there's like a gap between.
We did do that, but I mean, it people bang on the windows, you know. So because we have a viewing window and then we have the actual tank, behind that. There is a little gap, but you got people banging on the windows and everything, and it's loud.
That's messed up. That's terrible. Now, how long do you give, like the toads, for example? How long did you have them on in that habitat before you were like, okay, this is too, like, they're hiding too much? Like, how long is that time frame?
It all depends. Sometimes if you have guests repeatedly saying like, hey, I can never see that kind of speeds up the process. But really, with the building coming down, it gave us a chance, while our animals are in holding right now, to give us the time to build these nice habitats for them and get them ready for when they're display. Give us time to really think these things through. So I would say, like, for the 6 months before the building actually went down, we were kind of like, the building's coming down soon, so why change anything right now?
Yeah, that makes sense.
One thing I will say that has always impressed me is, I worked at one of the local car dealerships down in Tampa, and we actually sponsored the zoo. I don't know if they still do, because they got bought out, whatever. But we used to bring all the Land Rovers down there, and we came in the back entrance, and like, to get into the back entrance as a guest or dropping off one of the cars, it was like, we need to see your driver's license, we need to all. I'm like, I'm just dropping off this car. Like, they don't let anybody in. Like,
even if I forget, like the which I appreciate, because they're watching out for our security. But even if I forget my badge at home, and these people see me every day, I'm in my work uniform, they know me by name, they will not let me in until I either get my badge or they call my boss and they're like, is she clear to come in? Okay, good. So they take that really seriously, especially transferring materials or animals or anything like that.
That's a good thing, though.
And it's also not, unless it's changed, it was always not in the best of areas either.
Yeah, so. Around Sly Avenue. A lot of Tampa is being gentrified. I grew up in West Tampa, which was like a heavily Hispanic area, a big Cuban area, and now it's called Midtown, where there's like a huge Whole Foods and stuff right smack dab in the middle of it. So
yeah, I grew up in Carrollwood, aka Carrollhood, and then moved to South Tampa. So we went from being hood to oh, we're one of the wealthy folks.
Yeah, no, I
But,
currently live in Carrollwood, but like we're right off of Dale Mabry, so it's not too bad.
that's not bad at all. But you just go, can't even remember. Yeah, you're off of Sly, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sly and North Boulevard. No, North Boulevard? Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
I think one of the last things I wanted to ask before we call it here is, what is the hurricane protocol? Like,
Ooh, I like this because I make all the hurricane kits at work. So it depends on the species, right? Venomous is probably the most intricate for the hurricane protocol because we actually have to bag them, put them in pillowcases, and then we put them back in their habitats in case the building were to fall and their habitat were to break. They'll still be secure in those pillowcases, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Building on top of them.
What was that?
With the building on top of them.
Yeah. And for a lot of our amphibians and everything, we have deli cups with moss and stuff ready to put them in and transport them into a safer area. Our Komodo building is pretty sturdy. Like, we're not worried really about our Komodos in the building, but like our other juveniles that are in a different habitat, we would secure them in a carrier or something and bring them in a safe building.
What are you doing with the crocodilians?
They usually stay underwater. They stay underwater, and we just make sure that there's nothing in or around the habitat that can go flying.
Okay.
Same thing with the tortoises. A lot of the time we even give them access if they want to be in their night house or outside because they have a suit of armor on. So yeah, those guys we really just kind of let them do their thing.
Now, I know this isn't your department, but I know at the alligator farm, they would put the storks and all the birds in bathrooms. Do y'all do that as well?
Yeah, so they get pretty creative. I know a lot of the Africa animals, it gets kind of complicated with their holding. So like our hospital annex, it's a building made for like primate quarantine mainly, but they will probably have their animals go into big industrial carriers like the painted dogs, go into their box or something, secure them, and bring them into a secure building.
Okay.
They're just now building a giraffe holding too now. So before we didn't have that much holding for our giraffe, especially during hurricanes. So now they have a nice home.
Now,
so I wonder, what do they do with the birds in the aviary?
That's a good question. I believe they do kennel them and move a lot of them into the building. So there's a lot of shuffling around animals.
That would be a pain in the butt. There's a lot of birds in there.
Now,
oh my god,
do the big cats, do they have like shift boxes that they go into during times like that? Or like, what do they do?
I'm not sure if they have shift boxes, but they do have dens. And all of our buildings, like they have a den they can shift into, and all of our buildings that do hold big cats like panther and tiger and stuff, they will totally be fine in a hurricane. Those buildings aren't going anywhere.
Oh, sweet. Yeah. Well,
that's all.
I think that was all I wanted to yap about today. Anything else you wanted to talk about, Chad?
No, I'm still. I'm just happy I got to talk Komodo dragons and got completely like crushed when I found out Komodos that get 300 pounds are just fat.
Yeah, and like I said, these are my personal experiences and the things that I've learned, on my journey. Everyone's experiences with their animals is going to be different.
Mm-hmm.
But I really appreciate you guys finding interest in my work and wanting to talk.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for being willing to come on.
This is like a highlight.
Yeah.
Oh, I am so glad. Thank you so much.
I did think of one more question before we ended off tonight. What is... two more questions. What would be...
Yep.
What is your, I don't know, what would be one thing that if you could take it to the grave that you've learned working at an AZA facility, what would that be? Like, what would be the most important or valued information you've learned?
Oh, keep calm and do the task at hand. I've been, I feel like in a lot of situations, I like AZA because usually for a lot of things there's protocol, there's plans for a lot of scenarios. But something that at least my boss has taught me at this facility while I was training venomous, while catching crocs and everything, because I'm a very enthusiastic person, I'm a very hyperactive person, I drink gallons of coffee a day. I really had to reel back and kind of have a reality check of like, listen, you have a privilege for what you do, and you need to take care of yourself so you can take care of your animals and not do anything stupid. So self-preservation and staying calm in any situation and just doing the task at hand.
Yeah.
Yeah. Stay vigilant.
I'd say like the biggest thing I learned from the alligator farm was stay calm no matter what happens. So that makes sense. What would be my second question is what would be your number one advice to somebody who wants to become a zookeeper, like get into the AZA field? Like what's some advice you'd give?
Stay persistent and stay passionate and stay enthusiastic. I did not finish my degree. I have my associate's degree, but I dropped out of school during COVID because it was just a lot going on. But I really put all of my energy into networking, into volunteering, into interning. I worked full-time and interned full-time, and it was really hard. I went months without a day off. But if you surround yourself with people who are passionate and you are passionate for yourself and you don't lose that flame, you can make something out of nothing. You can get yourself there. And interning at an AZA facility is one of the best ways you can get your foot in the door and hopefully get a job one day.
So what you're telling me is if I move back to Tampa, I can potentially come intern down there.
Yes, I am the intern coordinator, so I love taking on interns.
There you go, guys. If you're wanting to intern, it's unpaid.
Yeah, it's 40 hours unpaid, which is
totally
tough.
fine.
If you're really into it and really want to do it, it doesn't matter. That should not matter to you. You should. I think that, like you said, that's definitely got to be your number one way to be getting into AZA.
Absolutely, and I don't know everything. I learn stuff all the time. I've gone on the news for my job. I've gone on the news and probably said some incorrect information, but I take everything as a learning opportunity, and I try to make myself better every step of the way to be a better reptile husbandry communicator and a better science communicator. But passion and enthusiasm, really, people love that shit.
Yeah. I think that's a perfect way to end off tonight's episode. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we call it here?
No, I think I'm good. You guys, if you're ever in the area, please hit me up. You guys are welcome to come to the zoo, see some cool stuff. Hopefully I can get you guys to see a Komodo feed or something. But I really, really appreciate you guys finding interest in what I do and wanting to talk to me. It's been a pleasure.
Of course.
Maybe a Komodo on the head?
Right? Maybe not that. And they might be a little bit big for that. And it's iffy. Sometimes they don't want to go on my head. So.
Well, thank you for coming on. And I know Chad said he's going to be in Tampa so the first week of October. So we'll coordinate something to come visit the zoo.
Yeah.
Heck yeah,
Definitely.
for sure.
All right, and remember, get more Bo's ice cream. Lay off the coffee. More Bo's.
Oh my gosh. Yes, the moment I go over there, I'll send you a pic.
Well, thank you so much,
good.
Jasmine. It was fun talking to you, and hopefully we can have you back on someday.
Absolutely, anytime, guys. Thank you so much.
Of course. You have a great night.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
That was a fun episode.
That was, I mean, I'm still shocked. Like I'm still like,
dude,
these things are ginormous, and
dude,
then
that
they're not
Komodo
as big
looks
as
a lot bigger than 70 fucking pounds. Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
It's you know the photo with the two on top. Like that big male on top looks. I would have guessed like 100 pounds.
Well, it's been so long since I've seen them in person down there.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I remember seeing them when they first got brought in. They
Mm-hmm.
first opened and obviously I was much younger then and smaller, so they looked huge. But now, I mean, just again thinking about a 70-pound monitor lizard. I mean, obviously it's Komodo dragon and it's still a monitor. It's not. They're not that much bigger than some of the stuff I have, which is it's kind of shocking.
Yeah, I went last time I went to Tampa. I think I went around a year ago, and yeah, I would have guessed they were bigger than 70 fucking pounds. I will tell you that. I would have guessed it was bigger than 70 pounds, and
and it just goes to show you that just because something's as big as it is doesn't mean it weighs that much.
Yeah,
which is
definitely.
Even more impressive.
But that was fun. I mean, definitely, I learned a lot about Komodos. Like, I learned some stuff I'd never learned before.
Well, I mean, I don't really know if I knew anything about Komodos other than what I've seen on like nature documentaries. I never researched them because I've never been like, I can have one of these, so I need to research it. But I think it's not just for Komodos, but even all monitors in general. I mean, I think that could, or reptiles, period.
Oh, you could definitely take a lot of that stuff that you said and apply it to other animals, for sure. Especially other monitors, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, I think the biggest takeaway when it comes to the keeping aspect is the slow growth. A lot of people me and Nick were talking about this. Too many people are pumping their animals full of food. They just want to get them the breeding size so they can make their money. And it just ends up with obese animals that aren't healthy. They're not going to give you good clutches. It might suck having to wait like 4 or 5 years longer to get it the breeding size, but in the end, you're going to get a lot healthier clutches. Your animal's going to be healthier and live longer. Like, slow growth in reptiles is the way to go, and I'll live by that.
Yeah, and it's not so. You got to think too. It's not so much about growing body size. You got to give those times for all the internal organs to grow and develop appropriately too.
Yeah, what she said, they don't feed more than 10% of body weight.
No, I thought she said they expect 10% growth per month.
Yeah,
10% of their body weight per month of growth. Which I mean that. So to think those ones that are a year have only grown 100 grams. That's not a lot. No. But then again, it's a lot because of knowing how big the Komodos actually are, like how much they actually weigh.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's still shocking to me.
Yeah, and it's cool hearing about all of that. Because that's one thing that I miss about being an AZA. Like you said, like not only the protocols, but they document every single thing. And I feel like not enough private keepers are documenting stuff. I feel like a lot of that stuff needs to be documented. I know it's on a lot of good, respectable breeders that a few at least do document stuff, and I really respect that. I think that is something that should be practiced more in the hobby. Like, you should be documenting how much in percentage your monitors are growing per month. Like that's a great thing to document.
Yeah, I think there's also something to be said about laying out food, and knowing what the animal weighs, and but again, there's people that, let's be fair, that in an AZA facility, there's a team of people.
Oh, 100%.
Like you and I, we're just one person, or in my case, on Saturdays we have 3 people here to help feed everything, and it goes by quicker, but we don't have the time to. I mean, if it was our full-time job and we could sit there and prep everything and weigh everything, and
that's the thing too. It's their full-time job. That's what they do for a living. A lot of us want to be reptile keepers and breeders full-time, and there's probably a few people listening that may be reptile breeders and keepers full-time. But even being a reptile keeper full-time, or breeder, I should say, full-time, it's different than being a zookeeper full time. Like, it's still a lot of work, and I think having a team helps a lot. And I don't know, we didn't really touch on it that much, but I know Jasmine has a great team over there at Tampa Zoo. Like,
Yeah.
Everyone there is on point.
Yeah.
Shout out to Jason. I know you reposted our stuff. I don't know if you're watching this, but he's been a good inspiration for me, man. I've been following him for years, and he does some amazing work over there.
Yeah, I don't know enough about the back end stuff. I just know that I love going to that zoo. It hurt my heart a little bit to find out that my favorite exhibit is gone.
Yeah,
but
it'll be cool to see how they revamp it.
Yeah, unless it's not. I mean, but saying that they're tearing down the tunnel and all that stuff, because that's where I used to go see the manatees, and then you go and walk through and you get to see all the reptiles and stuff.
It was so cool.
That was my reptile house. I mean, it was not the most overwhelming thing, but it was my favorite part of the zoo.
That reptile house, I guess it was about a year ago, it was the first ever zoo that I had seen with a tree monitor. That Cordensis that she now keeps personally. That was the first ever tree monitor I've seen in a zoo, and that blew my mind.
Yeah.
Like I mean, it makes sense that they have them in zoos, but that's just a species that, like, when I think about tree monitors, I only think about private keepers. I don't think about that being in the pet trade at all, or in the zoo trade at all. So it's just cool to see.
What I will say that that's Zoo Tampa, Larry Park. It's a great zoo. The one thing that I will say that I liked at the Norfolk Zoo was their reptile house. They had sailfin dragons. They had Chinese crocodile, or not Ctenosaurus. They had the caiman lizards. They had they had these really cool tanks with salamanders in it, oxalotls in it. They had all the tree monitors, various tarantulas and stuff.
There was a part of me that I deep down wanted her to say that they were going to get Shenosaurus. The Shenosaurus and tricolor monitors are my favorite lizards of all time, and I can't pick between the two.
Else. I was really hoping she was going to say Parenti,
because
they have that new. Well, because they have that new Australia exhibit with the New Guinea singing dogs and the emu and all that. Well, I guess it's not new now, but it was.
I don't know if I've seen. Maybe I've probably seen that. I went a year ago, so I probably saw it. But
yeah,
that would
they have the koalas and stuff, and then they have the New Guinea singing dogs and the big the flying foxes and stuff. It's like a kids area.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. That's sweet. I think
they have a palm. I think they have a palm cockatoo there now too.
That's a sweet cockatoo. I want one of those personally.
Yeah, they're expensive.
Did you ever see the Fijis that they had? I had no idea that Tampa Zoo had Fiji bandits.
Dude, I can't even tell you that I remember seeing American alligators there.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because, you got to think Busch Gardens. When you go to Busch Gardens, you've been to Busch Gardens.
Yeah.
Right? When you walk down to go to Egypt, you go walk by that giant pond with like 60 of them.
Yeah.
And so that's when I think alligators, I think of that. And then they also had that big croc there. I don't remember what kind it was.
That's the big American croc. They still have that.
Yeah, I don't know where he is now. He used to be in that.
No, they don't have it anymore. Because
they
only had
penguins. They have penguins there.
Ah, I forgot about that.
At Busch Gardens, yeah. But I think I've seen the gharial. But it's also been over 8 years since the last time I went to Larry Park Zoo. So.
Yeah, well, we definitely need to get you. I didn't even know you were coming the first week of October, so fuck you for not telling me that.
It's kind of to be fair, it's a new thing. I just found out that for my son's fall break, he's with me. So
awesome.
So I'm going to try to go down because I'm like I got to burn some vacation time.
Well, send me the dates, and I would love to go to Tampa Zoo with you guys. That'd be fun.
That'd be awesome.
And
I got to take them to Bo's Ice Cream. So if you're in the Tampa Bay area, right across from Zoo Tampa is, or I guess it's not right across, but it's right around the corner from Zoo Tampa. There's this place called Bo's Ice Cream. It's the best place in Tampa to get ice cream, and it's a hole-in-the-wall place. It's in the hood, but it's awesome.
I think that would be fun to do. I think that'd be a fun trip. And I'm going to say here on the podcast, so I'm held accountable, I'm coming to the Halloween party. October 19th. I'm coming. I'm requesting the day off tomorrow. Can I stay
Okay,
with you?
you better.
Can I stay with y'all for like a night or two?
In the couch.
That works. I'll sleep on the floor. I'll sleep with the croc monitors, dude.
Okay.
But
Okay.
I'm gonna bring up the mangroves when I come up.
Hell yeah.
So
We'll set them up.
sweet.
Set them up right.
That was a great episode. Thank everyone. Thank you guys for tuning in. Any new viewers that came to see Jasmine talk, please subscribe, leave a like, comment down below what you enjoyed about this podcast. And I guess we'll see you guys next week.
Absolutely. Thanks again.
And every Saturday, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is when these episodes go live. So be tuned in, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and we'll see you then.
Have a good one.